Good evening. This lady would like to say something. Thank you. I'm the pastor of the church here. You're welcome.
I want to thank all of you for coming tonight, and Pastor Wayne, whoa. I want to thank you and your church for letting us use your fellowship hall. We really appreciate it. Okay, if you haven't done so already, in the back there is a sign-in sheet. You can email this. We also have membership forms back there. If you would like to join, it's only $20. And look, you get all the cookies and coffee. And we have donation boxes right next to the free stuff over there. So if you'd like to make the donation, we'd appreciate it. And also, do you still have some raffle tickets, Harry?
Got a few left.
A few left. So
Let me know and I'll come by.
okay, so we'll be doing those shortly. And if everyone has now found a place, we'll stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Okay, and remain standing while our official chaplain does a prayer.
If you all will remember, about 14 years ago, a young lady named Rachel Joy Scott was murdered at Columbine High School. And her dad, Darrell Scott, gave very courageous testimony to a House Judiciary Subcommittee. What Congress didn't expect was what he was going to say. It was so moving and impressive, I rewrote it as a prayer. So let's pray it together. Heavenly Father, since the dawn of creation, you know there has been both good and evil in the hearts of men and women. Father, we contain the seeds of kindness and the seeds of violence. The death of Rachel Joy Scott and the other teenagers at Columbine and all of the victims of gun violence must not be in vain. When Cain killed Abel, the villain was not the club, it was the evil in Cain's heart. Father, you know that gun violence is not tragedy, it's a spiritual event that should force us to look where the real blame lies. Men and women are body, mind, and spirit. When we refuse to acknowledge our spiritual side, we can create a void that allows evil, prejudice, and hatred to enter in. Heavenly Father, we grieve as a nation. Some Americans refuse to honor you, and if we shake our fist at you in disbelief or ignore you completely, we open the doors to violence. No amount of gun laws would have stopped Harris and Cleveland because the real villain was in their hearts. Neither young man had a heart for you. When Rachel's young brother hid under the table at Columbine's library trying to avoid the gunman's bullets, he did not hesitate to pray. No ban on school prayer would have stopped or stood in his way of praying that day. Father, we humbly seek your blessing when we oppose any politician that denies us rights that our forefathers gave us of their own prayer, discernment, and wisdom. 2 Chronicles 7:14 says, "If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, I will hear them from heaven and forgive their sin, and I will heal their land." Father, hear this prayer. Heal the United States. We seek your divine and mighty intercession. And I personally pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are really pleased to have Sheriff Scott Mascher here tonight. I want to tell you a little bit about him. He was born in Pennsylvania, and at age 3, he convinced his parents to move to Arizona. So you can see he was already born with good sense. After college, he joined the Yavapai as a reserve officer. He became a certified deputy after only 3 years and patrolled the Verde Valley, Camp Verde, and the Sedona unincorporated areas. He's one of the founding members of a multiple agency drug task force known as PANT. And due to his supervisory skills in field ops and criminal investigations, he was promoted to sergeant and lieutenant. As captain, he managed patrol operations, internal investigations, and criminal investigations. And he was instrumental in the planning, design, and construction of a 650-bed jail in Camp Verde. As commander of Detention Services Division, he managed 2 jail facilities with inmates numbering over 1,200 people. He had a staff of 280, and he also supervised over 186 employees of the law enforcement service. After 25 years in law enforcement, he retired, but he was in such demand, he returned and accepted the chief deputy post. On June the 3rd, the Yavapai County Board of Supervisors unanimously appointed Mr. Mascher as sheriff, and in November 2012, running unopposed, he was elected the sheriff of Yavapai County. His personal mission statement: through strong and proven leadership, communities become safer. Join us in a warm welcome for Sheriff Scott Mascher.
Thank you very much. It's always embarrassing to hear that stuff. Time flies, it really does. It was in the early 1980s that Sedona was my first duty assignment. And it was a lot different than, I'll tell you, just down the road over here, I think it's the Glue something, a restaurant down the street here. That was actually my office. And so it was a lot different. But anyway, thank you very much for inviting me here today. I'd like to introduce someone with me. Yavapai County Sheriff's Office has 2 divisions. One is the jail division, the other is our law enforcement division. And today, the captain, the guy that oversees all of our law enforcement division, Dave Rhodes, is here. He's actually spent most of his life here in the Verde Valley. His family has ties all the way back to settling in this area and in the Prescott area. So he's got some great ties here and a great career with the Sheriff's Office. Today we've been dealing with some real kind of horrific discussions with our schools. And Dave and I set up meetings with school officials. We have 29 unincorporated schools that we're responsible for. And of course, all these schools in the county are different. The way they're set up, the buildings, how we would get there and respond if we needed to. So we felt it was really important that we meet with all the administrators and put some plans together and look at some reasonable proactive measures in dealing with such a horrific thing as school shootings. I mean, it's sad that we even have to go and do these things, but it's becoming part of something in our law enforcement that we really have to deal with. It went really well today, although it was such a hard thing to talk about. We met with probably half the administrators from 29 of those schools, and we came up with some proactive measures they can take with school safety, things that they would like to see us do that would be better for them. I certainly didn't want to go to the schools and say, this is what you have to do. You know, I needed to hear from them. Dave needed to hear from them what's going to work for them. And so we've been doing that all day. So if I'm a little slow today, and we've been going long, and we just finished up over in Beaver Creek a couple hours ago, and I think it was John Mitchell, wherever he's at, he had called me and said, is there any way you can come up here? And I said, sure. I think the last time I talked to you guys, it was over at the library. But anyway, I'm happy to be here. I really do appreciate it. You know, one of the big things that we're dealing with right now, a current issue, and unfortunately, it has to deal with guns because of the horrific things that we've been seeing take place across this country. And I really get offended when citizens get misdirected, misguided over the gun issue. I think that that's not the problem. And, you know, I sit down with my staff, and Dave's got 20 years, I got 30 years. My command staff is made up about 5 or 6 people with that equal amount of time. So we have over 100 years of experience, and we sit there and unanimously agree it's not the guns. For 30 years, I have worked very violent, horrific crimes. I actually worked an active shooting case at a school in Yavapai County in the 1980s. And it was multiple shooting of teachers and students. And when I got there, the deputy just ahead of me shot and killed the student who was walking around shooting these people. And so I've actually been to one, and at that point I realized it was a shotgun, but I realized that this was a kid that had severe mental health issues. And that's what it was. This kid's parents had made that known to people. The school knew about it. And I have seen that pattern happen over and over and over again for 30 years. So why are politicians not asking law enforcement what the problem is? How can we address this? How can we focus on fixing the problem? I've never arrested one gun or a knife or whatever instrument it is. I'm telling you, this really offends me when people stand up without asking law enforcement, what is it that we need to do to fix these problems? I spent half of my career, half of 15 years, I worked violent crimes against people. I worked homicides, you name it, I've worked it, Dave's worked it. Why are these politicians not saying that's probably the problem? What can we do to fix this? I haven't seen that.
They're idiots.
Some of them are, and there is no doubt of that. It's shameful we have people in our government that if you look at what their background is, I wonder how they got where they are. But I can tell you, and there's no doubt when I say it truly is a mental health issue, and I would love to see people in the current federal administration on a stage lined up with medical health doctors behind them saying this is what we have to do with our mental health system in this country. Because I'll tell you a story, this just happened. I asked somebody to tell me not to let me forget it, so I'm going to say it now before I do. This is how goofy it is, folks. We had a guy shooting at people, and I think you guys know where Childs is. You go off behind Camp Verde, you go down to the river down there. Well, some guy decides he's going to start shooting at people down there. We go down there, we get the guy, we bring him back, we arrest him for attempted murder. His defense attorneys pass it through the courts that he's incompetent to stand trial. And he, I got to tell you, he's a nut. Pardon my expression, but he has some real mental health issues. You got families camped down there, he's opening fire on. Anyway, they find that he's incompetent to stand trial, and he can't be charged criminally for shooting at people. So they send him to the state hospital. He goes down to the state hospital, gets his treatment, finishes his treatment, and they let him out. He goes right out and buys a gun. Fills out the background forms where it says something about mental health problems. He, of course, has the rules. Checks the box that he never has, and we get him again creating issues with a gun he shouldn't have had, and he's again incompetent to stand trial for his criminal conduct. Now, how does that work? We see this kind of thing over and over again, and tell me, when these people, is that the gun's fault? No, I don't see that as the issue at all. I mean, and I'm serious, when I look out at these crimes that we go out and we handle and we investigate, we don't even look at it as anything other than a criminal issue. And mental health plays a big part of that. In our jails right now, and I think you guys may remember if you were at the last time when I talked to you here in Sedona, we spend about $3.2 million a year in our jail of our tax money to provide treatment and mental health. And I'm dead serious when I tell you about 80% of the people in our jails, not just here, but all over, have serious mental health issues. We provide them treatment while they're there because we have to. We can't violate their civil rights. When people are in jail, they're innocent until proven guilty. If they get found guilty, they go to prison, and then it changes a little bit. They lose some rights. But while they're here locally in our jail, they still have their rights. They have their rights to medical, to 2,200 calories a day of food, and it goes on to the tune of about $16 million total a year. But we'll give them the mental health treatment, the psychotropic drugs, and what happens when they get out? They're not going to get that treatment. So what happens? We see them again. And we see them again, and we see them again. And we'll see the same people, that recidivism, year after year after year, until they do something extremely violent or they die because of medical conditions or whatever it may be. Why is our government not focusing on those kind of issues and focusing on the guns? It makes no sense to me. And I've been a cop for 30 years, Dave 20, all my staff, we've sent letters, we've done all kinds of things. You're misdirecting the problem. You're misguiding people, misdirecting people, pointing it at guns when that's not the case. And so I have taken a stand here recently. I had a lot of people address me as to what my feelings are about bans, and this was prior to the executive orders that were going to be coming out. And I think someone had made a comment, and I don't remember if it was the vice president or who it was, that, you know, with executive orders, this may be a time that we need to ban guns and magazines, and that really fired up a lot of people in Yavapai County. I'm telling you, a lot of people got worked up over that. I can't tell you how many emails, how many phone calls, how many, you know, people at meetings would come and say, Scott, what are you going to do if that order comes out? Are you going to enforce an order? What are you going to do? The other thing I had was my staff. You know, we got 140, 150 deputies. We've got 200 and some detention staff. We have 400 and some people. Sheriff, what are you going to do? So I sent a memo out to the agency. And I don't have it here in front of me. I wish I did. I'd pass it out to you guys. But basically it says, you know, the very first line in my oath of office was, I shall uphold the Constitution of the United States. That was the very first, right in the very first sentence, giving my oath of office. And basically I said that I am not going to support or nor will I go along with any kind of order that is preempted by the Second Amendment. And I will not infringe upon anyone's rights. And I sent that out to the agency. And as usual, and I was ready, but the media got it right away. And so that went out, and I don't know if it made it over here in the newspapers, but it was a big front page thing over there in Prescott. And for the most part, I got a lot of, you know, we support you for this, but I also got a lot of hate mail. I was really surprised from folks that, oh man, they were mad. You know, how can you decide what laws you're going to enforce and what laws you aren't? Well, is an order a law? No. You know, regulation a law? No. So I don't know where these people come up with that, but that's what I'm faced with, you know, when I deal with these kind of things. And, you know, God bless our founding fathers, you know, truly. I mean, to have the idea of separating our government into 3 branches, so not one branch gets overly powerful than the other, so we don't have an executive person in the federal government saying, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. Well, you can order all you want, but that's not a law. The Constitution preempts that. The Supreme Court has said that. And that's the stand I took. And yet, I'm just the hate mail of, my gosh, how can you do that? You're not protecting us. You're not. Well, you know, I'm keeping that stance. And I don't know how you guys feel about it, but that's how I feel about it. Really nice to be amongst friends. I tell you, the last few days over there in Prescott, there was a few folks that, I mean, were really upset, writing letters, and how could I do this to families, and, you know, I was like, wow. You know, I didn't say I wouldn't enforce laws. I said I would enforce the most supreme law we have, the founding law of this country, the Constitution and the Second Amendment. And I truly believe that the Second Amendment, and I think it was it Zach? Did I be saying that? Oh, there you are. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Zach came over here and said, hey, what's the reason for the Second Amendment? And you hear all kinds of things, but truly, I believe back when, and I think it was in 1775, and it's hard for me to remember numbers and dates, but, as a kid, I had the greatest government teacher. And I remember that the British were marching through Concord to Lexington, and you know what they were going to do? They were going to take guns, and they were going to take ammo, and they didn't want the colonists to have any of that. Well, how do you think the colonists felt? Well, geez, so the Second Amendment, well, and there was a shot fired. Do you remember what that was? That's right. The shot heard around the world. And, I remember that as a kid. To this day, and to me, that meant a lot. That Second Amendment is to remind the government that they're here for us. They are here for us, and they're not to get too big for their britches. That's what it's all about, basically. And what happens when you start chipping away at the Second Amendment and saying, well, you can't have this one. Well, maybe it'll be a pump shotgun next, or maybe it'll be whatever. But what amendment's next? And I was accused of, well, there's no executive order that came out. You're just panicking. This is ridiculous. This is unrealistic. The federal administration never said that. Those executive orders never came out. Well, you know why they didn't come out? Because about 300 sheriffs across the country wrote letters and said, if you do an executive order like that, we're not going to adhere to it. We're not going to cooperate with it, and we're not going to support it. And I think so it was good to have other friends out there. I grew up as a kid with guns. That's how it was. I remember just being a little guy. My dad would take my he used to tell me, plug your ears, and I knew he was going to shoot something, a deer usually. And that's just kind of how I grew up. He taught me about guns. They weren't hidden away in a closet or up high on a shelf or somewhere. They were over here. That's where they were. You knew what they were. You knew how to treat them as a kid. And I think that's some of the breakdowns we've seen in our country is we're not teaching our kids. We're not being responsible anymore to show our kids these things. This is the breakdown of the family, not just with guns, but with crime, with all kinds of things. We see the loss of our religious beliefs, where it's taken away from certain things. And isn't it in God we trust? Doesn't that say that on the money? It is a huge breakdown in this country to have people tell us we can't pray and do things that we should be able to do without any issues. And it's that way, and that's how my father raised me. I'm not a gun expert. I just know the guns I have, and I own 2 AR-15s. One of them is a 1967 Colt that kind of is a historic memento for me for the Vietnam era. I think I've maybe shot it once, but now you're telling me you're thinking about taking it away from me? You're thinking about telling me that I can't have a 30-round magazine? You're telling me, I can't have this or that, and, we have to stand up and say enough's enough. We really do. It's a constant battle. And so I love to see it, and I love to come to these because it is good to see folks who believe this, who want to stand up for our beliefs, our American rights, and remind the government that they're here for us. They truly are. And, just think about those founding fathers. You look at the Constitution, and we've all heard it. My gosh, it's, I don't know how many pages if you were to put it out. It's not that many. But after 200 and some years, it's just as valuable then as it was today. You look at countries around the world that aren't even 200 years old. They've been through 5 constitutions, 10 constitutions, 15 constitutions. Here we are after 200 and some years, and it's still worth every word in there. And it's amazing how the foresight they had to look ahead at that, isn't it? I mean, it's amazing. I've heard that.
And she knows.
His mom?
His grandmother.
Oh, his grandmother. Yeah.
And that was on the 8:30 radio in Honolulu.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. His father was a British citizen. He's not a natural born American.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of issues that we deal with in this country, and you know, as sheriff, my biggest issue is public safety. I mean, this is where I grew up. This is what I know. My whole adult life, I've been at the sheriff's office. Our biggest priority is just to respond to calls for service. You guys call if it's an emergency, whatever you do. You know, it's a huge county. Today I dealt with some issues with the school shootings and all. Man, it may take you 30 minutes to get here. This is unacceptable. That's the reality of it. I hate to say it, but we have some limitations at the sheriff's office. If I have a deputy in Ash Fork and a shooting is going on in Seligman, that's 22 miles. Even if he's driving 110 miles an hour, it's going to take that time to get there. But we do have other agencies that will back us up. We do have a highway patrol out there, other people that will come and help us out. So that was some of the things I dealt with today. It was good to hear from a lot of the school folks that, you know, they also support the Second Amendment, that they're very much pleased with it as well. So, having said those things, I don't want to carry on too long. I know you guys would have a lot of questions for me about certain things or issues, yes.
I had a girlfriend just leave Sedona last week, back to Texas. She was stopped by Homeland Security.
Wow.
They are everywhere now.
Yeah.
And they are putting roadblocks up and checking, and went through her car, and they had dogs, and everyone was in fatigues, and they had all the AR-15s and all that.
And that was in Arizona?
And no, it was just over the border into Texas, but they're now in several states, and they're stopping. What is the Arizona position of stop, confiscate things?
Yeah, well, I can tell you, Yavapai County, what my position is. Well, first off, yesterday, or Tuesday and Wednesday, the sheriffs across Arizona, we get together. And we were just down in Phoenix for a couple days, and we do a lot of talking and things about various things. And the majority of the sheriffs in Arizona are very supportive of the Second Amendment. And some will say they aren't for it, but they're not of the same mindset we are.
Who should we look out for?
Well, what I'll tell you is we talk about a lot of things. This hadn't come up, but I'll tell you that the sheriffs, for the most part, Tom Sheehan in Mojave County, great guy. He and I are on the same page with a lot of things. The new Cochise sheriff, same page. Of course, Sheriff Joe down south of us there. He's always helped. Every time I've asked him, remember that murder we had down here where those folks were shot at? You know, Dave and I were there. Very, very brutal, random, again, a mental health issue, folks. This guy was seeing spacecraft and all kinds of goofy things, and these poor people were looking at realty magazines. They were going to buy a place here, and this guy walked up to one side of the car, walked around, shot him. We were able to recover a bullet, and it was a certain type of bullet. But we ran it down south to Joe because that officer was killed the very next day, I think. Right there soon, the deputy. We went down and we thought, we better run down and see if we can tie these two together. It was a match. And Joe got that info for us up here in Yavapai County within hours for us. So Joe will help us all the time.
I'm holding my hand up because I want to say something here. I don't hear any yet, but I hope we don't get a drone coming in.
You know, I don't have any drones, but I'll tell you what we did get today, and I'm kind of excited about it because we do a lot of high-risk calls, and we have to send deputies and people into buildings where people don't want to see deputies get shot. Well, one of my deputies was able to, from another agency, get us one of these little robots on tracks that has a little camera that's got a little arm on it, that it can go in and give somebody a phone, and if it gets shot up, we don't care too much. But we just got one of those, but no drones. No drones.
I just want to add one more thing. What does this resemble?
Oh, I'm sorry, we have to call the ATF.
This is what this country's coming to.
Yeah.
Kids can't even do this.
Kids
Right.
can't have a good time anymore.
They cannot do this.
No, I know exactly what you're saying, and you know, people. Again, think about it. It's not the guns, and that's why I say people are being misdirected. I worked homicide again for 15 years, folks, on multiple killings, just like this one here. We need to have a way to treat them. We need to have a process to treat them. You know, I don't agree with, you know, paying people who don't have the money for some medical treatment, but when you have violent mental health people who are going to come out of jail, go out, commit a crime, hurt somebody, and come right back, somehow in our society, in some way, we have to be able to deal with that. I don't know how. It's a complex issue, but we need to do. I bet you everyone in this room knows or knows someone who knows someone with a serious mental health issue that you have to worry about because of violence.
I don't understand why. I don't understand why we can't get a petition going and get signatures on it to actually put it on the ballot about what it is that we want to pin down. For example, the guns or whatever, because if we address the issue of people being mentally ill people and even get groups going, then that could be a means of communication. Because what kind of means of communication do we have now to funnel information through if something drastic happens to us? Like what would be the position, like for instance, that they're trying to push us into a corner saying, okay, now we want to take away your guns. What kind of means do we have? Like you're standing up, other sheriffs are standing up, but in order to target the people that are agreeing with you, what kind of means do you have to share information with one another if something emergency came up?
Well, so far as in law enforcement, we have a very good networking communication, and I'll get calls from the sheriffs in Utah, Nevada, the email communications, the computer, our technology age this day is unbelievable for communication. So I think I hope that answers your question. Now,
Kind of amendment that we can petition for so that when the next election comes, is that in 2030? There's another one in between that we could actually, I mean, I'm sure people in here would get really involved, but if you educate people on, as I teach, then you're going to get rid of the obstacle of people saying, oh, we shouldn't do this, we shouldn't do that, because they're having snap judgments instead of someone trying to educate them what's going on. Because certainly there's enough people in here, people went around to their neighborhoods or take the time to do a 2 or 3s and just to try to talk to people because we need communication. The dialogue has stopped.
We absolutely have to have communication. Communication is the key, and I saw that today dealing with the schools, you know, that we're all on the same page. I think it's important you do what you're doing here. I think it's important you run your legislatures, your congressmen, your senators, and do it in signature form with everybody and voice your concerns, voice your opinions. I can imagine that, and this came up at, I forget what meeting I was at. I think it was over in Mayor or Dewey, somewhere over in there, where, you know, I was being asked, well, if people start to come collect guns, what are you going to do? Well, you know, first off, let me see what the precursor is to that. I mean, you can't just show up and start collecting guns. That's illegal. I will go there and I will say, whoa, 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 what is going on here? This can't be happening. We have the judicial branch of government that we need to focus on as well. When you see these orders, these various things come out, that's what Janet Brewer did when she sued the government on 1070. You remember when she sued them on the immigration issues? And we have to use that branch of government. We need to step up, and there are times we have to sue the federal administration. We just need to do it. And, you know, they stripped me of my federal immigration powers. Because of that lawsuit, they came out, and just to Arizona. You know, we at the sheriff's office, whether you agree with it or not, we had a significant amount of drug crimes occurring in Yavapai County with illegal immigration. A lot of smuggling and things were taking place. total amount of illegal immigrants we deported was right around 3,000 in Yavapai County, just in Yavapai County. And the federal government came and said, you can't do that anymore. We're not going to, well, we're still doing it. I think that this is our community. This is where we live. This is the people were voicing their opinions on that. You elect me into office. I try to take the best information I can and what the folks want to do, and we try to focus on those kind of things. And I thought somebody else had a hand up first back there. There she is.
Sheriff Mascher, you said that you refuse to participate or cooperate with any unconstitutional order that will infringe our Second Amendment.
There, she's got it.
You also require the same thing of your deputies and your staff.
I sent that to them, just so you know.
Will you order them to participate?
Oh, no. I just so you guys know, I got accused of you're trying to grandstand, you're a politician. Folks, I had national news asking me to come and interview on this. I had Phoenix, I had people from the only people I talked to were here in Yavapai County. This is where I'm elected. I turned that down. I'm not looking to get up on a soapbox. That's how I felt. I told my staff, this is how we're going to be in Yavapai County when it comes to these orders and these things that infringe Second Amendment. That Second Amendment preempts any order. That's not a law. That's how I felt personally. And that's where I received all the criticism and the hate mail from folks that said, oh my gosh, how could I do that? To their kids, to this, to that. Well, I'm not saying I'm not going to enforce laws. That is the law of the land right there. And my gosh, to me, that's 100% correct as to what I did. And just before that, it probably was a few months before that, and I got really upset. And I love the Forest Service guys. They're hardworking guys, especially our local ones. They're out in the woods patrolling trees, making sure the trees are growing right, doing all kinds of things like that. Whatever you do out in the woods, driving around, I don't know. They were out there patrolling the trees. I get this letter from the Department of Agriculture, of all places, who runs the people who patrols the trees, from Washington. And it says that all of the national forests in the West, we're going to shut down 30% of the roads. We're just going to shut them down. And I said, what? So I started talking to the people who patrol the trees, and they said, talk to our bosses, we're just patrolling. So I started trying to figure out, why are you shutting these roads down? Well, we're going to preserve the forest. Well, wait a minute, my grandpa drove those roads. My dad drove those roads. I drove those roads, and now you're telling me my son can't drive those roads? I want to know why. Well, we're protecting our forest. And I go out there in the woods all the time. We got local laws. If somebody's cutting trees they shouldn't cut and don't have a permit, we charge them for that. If they're tearing up the woods and tearing up the roads and driving out there where they shouldn't be, we got state laws. We deal with that. And, well, that's just what we're going to do. It's a directive. It's a new regulation. It's not a law.
Agenda 21.
Agenda 21. Well, here's the other really goofy thing about that, is each of the forests in Yavapai County, there's 4 of them, the Prescott, the Kaibab, the Coconino, and the Tonto, are all parts of Yavapai County. Each one of the supervisors in those 4 forests did it a different way. They said, some of them said, well, we're going to put a sign up if the road's closed. Some of the other forests, like the Coconino up here, said, well, it's up to you, the American citizen, to come us, and we'll tell you what road's closed. We're not going to come out and show you or pay for signs. You got to come get this map, and it's going to tell you what roads are closed. One of the other forests says, well, when you're out driving around in our forest and you want to go get an elk, which is a big animal, you can't do that anymore. You can't drive off-road to get your elk, but you can do that over on this side of the road, not that side of the road. It has to be in this unit, not that unit. And I'm going, well, this makes absolutely no sense. And they said, well, sorry, that's the way it is. We're the Department of Agriculture, and that's the new code or rule or whatever we put out there. And I said, well, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that at the sheriff's office. What I did is I sent out a memo to the staff, and I said, the Forest Service failed to put a comprehensive plan together, explain why they're doing this, and not only that, any one of us, a deputy, you, me, can unintentionally go into one of these forests and violate that order and be cited criminally for it. And it's not even a law. So I said, we're not going to enforce that. If the Forest Service wants to go out and do it, we're come to help them, but we're not going to go do that. And I said, we will continue to enforce laws, but those are the state laws that we've been doing for, I don't know how long we've been a state. 100 years now, whatever. And, you know, so now I got the Forest Service mad at me. Well, I got to tell you, folks, think about it. You know, that's what prompted me into this gun thing. This didn't go through legislation. This didn't go through Congress. It was somebody back in a dreary, damp, cloudy place back east somewhere that said, you know, let's go shut the woods down in Arizona. What? I mean, come on. That doesn't make any sense. So, yes, sir.
What kind of sanctions or problems would you anticipate from the federal government for your refusal to enforce this order from our Almighty One?
Well, one of the concerns I've had...
You think they may cut federal funding?
Yeah, I do think that that's some of the things I'll be seeing cut is, you know, when I was doing the immigration stuff and I was trying to charge the federal government reimbursement for salaries for doing their job, and I couldn't believe that they were paying me. They'd send me a check. I was going, boy, this is nice. But I think I'm going to see that go away. And the other, I hate, you know, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, knock on wood. It's a few years ago, 20% of our jail was illegal immigrants. 20%. That was a lot of money that was coming out of our pockets. So I got all over ICE and I said, you got to get these people out of here. They need to be deported. They're not Americans. I'm sorry, they're criminals. When they get through the judicial system, you need to get them out. They did. They got them out and they said, well, we got to hold them somewhere until we deport them. And I said, well, I'll take them at $63 a day. So they brought them back. So for $63 a day, I'm dealing with it, and they keep them a short time, and then they got some more. Well, last year, Yavapai County made $3.2 million doing that to offset our tax. But don't tell them I said that. It's you know, it's one of those things where I'm used to dealing with the operation stuff out on the road. I'm not, the politics stuff has been new for me. You know, I try to do what I think is best with the information I have. I try to do what's best for Yavapai County. What I believe from what information I can get is going to be the best for all of us. And honestly, my top priorities are public safety. That is our top priority, is to go out and make sure that our kids are safe, to make sure if you call 911, we're going to be there for you.
I have a question going back to mental illness and people. We have some neighbors that are definitely have mental illness. I mean, it's a married couple, they're well off, they have a nice home, and they do some really strange things in our area. And we've actually called the sheriff's department, had a really nice sheriff deputy come out numerous times. Like, the guy yells off his decks at the planes because he doesn't like planes, they're poisoning him. I can go on and on. It's just crazy. The neighbors that are very close to him, it's worse. Yeah. But the problem is, a lot of people that aren't affected, other than hearing him scream, everybody's afraid to do an injunction on him because they're afraid that they'll come back against all of us. And one neighbor got a call from the wife, who's also a little off her rocker, saying that her husband was out in the street one night with a .45 and he was going to kill himself. But it didn't happen, darn. No, I'm just kidding. But what do you do in a case like that? You know, we keep calling the sheriff's department.
Yeah. First off, you know, it's not criminal. You're not a criminal if you're insane. You can do some criminal things, but you're not a criminal if you're insane.
Give him some ammunition.
Yeah, but what happens when he snaps?
Well, and that's the issue that we're dealing with in this country is when some of these people snap, you have to call it in. And, you know, if they're violating the law, if he's out in the street with a gun, waving it around, and we get there and deal with it, he's most likely going to go to jail, unless he's doing something legal, you know, protecting his property or something, I don't know.
2 bullets only.
But, you know, you do need to report it. You do need to make sure if there's anything criminal we can deal with. You know, I've got an eccentric guy living next door to me that went out the other day and bought like 100 chickens, and he's letting them run around his yard, and I got coyotes coming from everywhere, and I'm going, what are you doing? You know, I live out where you got 5-6 acres, and he says, I got free-ranging chickens, and I'm going, oh, Lord. You know?
That's good compared to what we
Yeah, well, I'm just telling you, you can't make some of this stuff up. You know, you can't make it up. Well, the coyotes are having a field day. They can go over that problem, and they're mucking out the chickens quick. So anyway.
2 quick comments and question. You know, they always want us to call 911 for assistance if we got somebody breaking in. I live on the country. Unless you got a deputy right on my doorstep, a minimum response time is 15 to 20 minutes to my house. And you think I'm going to sit on 911 on a telephone and wait for this guy to come in and shoot me? I don't think so. Pardon? I am 911, absolutely. Another comment is you're kind of mentioning about the mental health and the guy that was down at Clear Creek shooting people up, and his lawyer got him off of that. And my comment to that is one of the problems we have in this country is too damn many lawyers.
God bless you.
The question I have is you have addressed the mental health issue. What about the criminal aspect? Is there what's going on with the criminal aspect?
Well, and that really is the basis and the foundation of what we do at the Sheriff's Office is we deal with criminal activity, anything imaginable. You would just be amazed at what we get calls on. But we'll tell you, and this was really surprising for me, and I actually did kind of a staff study for the past sheriff when I was a captain, or I don't remember what I was at the time. We were trying to correlate crime with the economy and try to look at staff placement and various things across the county because of limited manpower. And all the studies I did, I really couldn't come up with a way to predict crime with the economy. Now, common sense would kind of tell you that if the economy tanks and gets really bad, you'd think crime would go up. It was just the opposite. In the real downturn that we saw here in the county, and it was a big downturn, and I saw it through revenues through the jail district, quarter-cent tax, it just plummeted, everything went down, people left, jobs were gone, and crime went down. I was like, wow. So what that tells me is that we live in a great place. We really do. People look out for each other. People take care of themselves. When you're at home and you have a problem, you deal with it. Sometimes you'll call us if it's something that we need to be there for. Sometimes you deal with it on your own. I mean, I've been to calls where someone's broken a home and the husband or the man's got up and taken the person into custody with a gun, and I thought, wow, we didn't even shoot him. You know? And so I see a lot of people across Yavapai County that look out for each other. They look out for themselves. And it went down, and that was a great thing to see. And I think it was a combination of reasons. I think a lot of people moved out. A lot of people left that were, you know, that had jobs, transient jobs. I'd like to tell everybody it was the sheriff's office. But, and I think that was part of it. The men and women of the sheriff's office do an awesome job, and you're only as good as who you have around you. That is such a common sense thing, but so true. Dan?
Scott, I have a question about school safety.
Yes, sir.
Here in Sedona, we had to deal with the school district. The city and the district split the cost of the school resource officer. Okay. What do you do in unincorporated areas when you don't have a city police department? Do you have sheriffs who sit as school resource officers, or how do you address that in unincorporated areas?
Well, I'll tell you, and the question was, how do we deal with school resource officers in an unincorporated? Big topic right now, and that came up a lot today in our meetings. For us, in Yavapai County jurisdiction, schools, unincorporated areas, I need almost $5 million a year to put an officer into those schools. So what I'm trying to do right now is I am recruiting volunteers, and I have an academy class with 17 volunteers who are going to be trained to carry guns. I already have a complement of them. And we are going to try to assign those folks who come out of those classes to specific schools that they can go have lunch with the kids, get to know the staff, get to know each and every building, what are the doorways, I think that's really important. And the school, they're just praying we can make that happen. And I would love to make that. I can't come up with $5 million. There's just no way.
Sheriff, where do you sign up?
It's called the Volunteers in Protection, and Denise Lull is our volunteer coordinator, and she could give you all the information on it, and you can go to varying degrees. Some of the folks don't want to carry a gun. They don't want to go through the proficiency training, or they can't see very good like me anymore. But we can't do a lot of the things we do without volunteers. There is no way the sheriff's office can put 200 people on the ground and go search for a 7-year-old boy that's lost in the woods without volunteers. And Dennis, he was one of our volunteers that knows that. We are very successful at what we do out there in Yavapai County because of volunteers. God bless them. Talk about a community.
Are you going to use retired or former military people?
We're trying to hire them. We're trying to hire them. What could you imagine? Look at what you're going to get there. Some great people. We want to hire them.
I got a real good proficiency with a 45.
Well, there you go. Come through our testing process. We're always looking. I saw one over here.
What was the name of your contact?
Denise Lull. And I don't remember, it's L-O-L-L or L-U or L-O-L-L. 771-3260 is our main number, and then you can ask for Denise, and she can go over. And we have not just VIPs, we have search and rescue. We have cold case teams who are working old homicides from people who are retired, experienced homicide detectives that are like tired of, doing nothing at home. And man, I'll put cases, they just solved one. So, God bless them. I mean, what a better way to, put some community service to work.
I'd like some information. I spoke to Dennis Rhodes in the back, and I was wanting to know some kind of organization where we could go if I wanted to go get trained on a weapon, trained properly on a weapon. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, you bet.
Paulding, someplace in Paulding?
Well, in Paulding, there's a lot of places out there. Paulding has a great place. It's Gun Sight Academy, and I think they have reasonable CCW classes, carrying concealed weapon classes, that you can go and get a 1 or 2 day class. But remember, it's something that you have to maintain. You don't just take the class and, okay, now I'm good to carry a gun. You have to shoot it. You got to go out and practice with it. You have to, just like myself, I got to qualify, 2 times a year. It's getting hard.
You got to get it in that area.
Well, I got to get glasses. I hate to say it, but I've been fighting it, but I need glasses, and I'm qualifying, but it's one of those things that's a proficiency skill you have to maintain. Gun sight is one of the best places. We also have some deputies that do it on the side, but I don't have any of that information with me. But there are, if you go and search on the web for Yavapai County, you'll get a big listing, and gun sight is one of the top classes. I thought I saw somebody else.
I know you're talking about the Second Amendment today, but I was wondering if you're also willing to protect us from the federal government from the Fourth and 10th Amendment, and make sure you keep your jurisdiction over the federal government in your county.
Well, I appreciate that, and of course, as I've said, you know, the Constitution is the founding law of this country, and you start chipping away at any of them, whether it's search and seizure issues or whatever, we have to maintain it, we have to fight those amendments, and absolutely, I will fight to protect them, and as my memo said. Yes?
Of the 300 sheriffs, how many are there in the U.S.? What percentage of that is in that collective that is honoring the law,
You know,
the Fifth Amendment?
yeah, I don't know how many total. I think the last I saw some weeks ago, and this may be a low number, I've heard 300, I've heard 800 sheriffs have band together. I don't know how many total, because once you start getting further and further east, the counties are about as big as this room. You know, they're so small. One state may have 400 counties or something, you know.
I've read that there's over 4,000 states.
Wow.
Yeah, and I don't know how many sheriffs have showed up, but I'll tell you, the ones in the West out here, it is a different culture out here. We look out for each other. We grow up with guns. We hunt. We're outdoors people. You know, it's just part of our culture. You know, I brought some folks out here from Connecticut. I met on a Grand Canyon River trip, and they just loved Sedona. We went on a hike, and my God, I thought I was going to kill them. You know, I started getting worried. I'm like, oh no. My wife was mad as hell at me.
Well, the other comment I have is, I think it's important not to be deflected away to think of children in the schools, or it's the gun that's the problem. It really is power grab. It's overwhelming, it's authority, it's to diminish, it's to make people afraid.
Right.
And I think that has to really always be in the dialogue.
It does.
That we understand that that's what it's about. I was raised with guns.
Yeah.
And I think, I love the idea of one of the cities that has now mandated every home must have a gun.
Wow.
I love that. And the more concealed carry, the more trainings there are, the more that is put out to have people lose any imagined fear about guns, because they just have to shoot a little bit. They go, well, there's
Right.
nothing to be afraid of, and now I respect it, understand it. So those are some of the things that I'm real aware of.
Yeah. And, you know,
In
it's...
dialogue with people who are, oh no, no
Right.
guns.
There's a lot of people, folks, that have never even held a gun.
Yeah.
Never even touched a gun. Yes, sir.
Sheriff, I really appreciate you coming out here. I don't have a question, but I'd like to make a comment to the whole audience. I'm glad that you're all here, and we are talking about the Constitution. The Constitution gives freedom offices, but the Constitution also says we the people.
Amen.
We the people. And we the people are not pissed enough to say enough is enough. And so, you know, for everybody that's here tonight and wants to keep your constitutional rights, then start stirring the pot. Start going back to your friends and saying enough is enough. And hopefully, we can get enough people to do something to say, it's time to flush the toilet in Washington.
Yeah, especially at the top.
It's time to flush the toilet. Enough is enough. And get back to our government doing what you do, public safety. That's your job.
The government is here for us.
That's right.
They are here for us. And even at my level, you know, and that may be my fault. I don't think of myself as government, but I realize I am. But I think of myself as one of you. When I'm out doing things, and what I've always told my detectives and my staff is, when you're out dealing with family of victims, and most of my experience was in very violent crimes, homicides, I said, you treat those people, those surviving family members, as you would want your wife treated, your daughter treated, your parents treated. That's how I expect you to treat these people. You give them your cell phone number. You be available for them to talk to you. This is a huge, tragic event in their lives, and you're going to get them through this, and you're here for them. And that's what I've always told my staff, and that's truly how I feel. And I think that shows with a lot of my detectives and what they're doing. And, so I think of as government, I realize I am, but, I lived here. I lived here in Sedona for 8 years. I bounced all around this county. I've lived everywhere in this county. I've had different assignments, and I really feel this is my home, and this is where my kids are growing up. I have a vested interest here. So I want the crime to go down. I want to be part of this. I want to see us not have our rights chipped away, and it just keeps going and going. And so that's what I try to let my staff know. And I'll tell you this, I was very proud of the sheriff's office. Every one of the employees that I have spoken with and talked to supported those memos I sent them. And they weren't just saying that to me, that came up from their friends and other friends, so they weren't just saying it to appease me. I heard this in all different ways. So I assure you that the staff at the sheriff's office feels the same way. And so I'm really proud that I like that.
Does the Homeland Security have power over you?
No, they have, I haven't seen them here. I heard they went out and bought a zillion rounds of ammo. I thought, what are they doing there? But no, I have never even dealt with them. Initially, they told me, and this goes back when we started seeing those big hurricanes and all those things around the country, they decided they were going to come tell me how to run an incident command. And if you have a big natural disaster or a huge fire, this is how you have to run it. And I'm going, well, I know how to run it. I've been doing this 30 years. And then, well, if you don't do it, we're not going to give you any funding. And we're going to make, and I said, well, I don't want any. Don't give me any. So, last question.
Scott, let me tell a quick story, and I want you to comment.
Hey, Dan, hang on just a second, buddy, because she was talking, and then I'll give, and we'll go with that.
All right, two.
Okay.
He's got a gun.
Lady first.
I just wanted to say thank you for the station in the village.
Oh, great. Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. It was needed. I got a picture of the VOC, the village, with a dirt road going right down past Bell Rock. It's 1957, and there's a cowboy pushing a bunch of cows. Now there's over 6,000 people there. Dan?
I want to tell a quick story. I want you to comment.
Okay.
There was a rancher in southern Arizona on the border who had illegals crossing his property, causing damage, what have you. So one day, he took out his gun and he rounded them up and held them until the Border Patrol came and took them away. He sued against him in federal court and won a judgment against the rancher. He appealed it, and the appellate court upheld that. It was a couple of $100,000 in damages for this man protecting his property. Wow. He didn't shoot anybody. He merely used a firearm to keep him under control until the Border Patrol came.
That's wrong. That's wrong. He's protecting his property. He's protecting his livelihood. And again, that's why, folks, everything's a constant battle. Everything's a constant battle. Just like that gentleman said, we got to get mad enough.
Sheriff, I would love to see you do a video speaking straight into the camera. I mean, my background is media. No, right into the camera that can go viral. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. Something where you're speaking from your position, your understanding, your heart, your direct experience, where you become part of the education. You go out and do other things in other states. Do it from this state and be a voice, and have all these other sheriffs be a voice to educate, to get people awakened.
Well, I appreciate that, and I look at, again, folks, I look at Yavapai County as me providing public safety. I'll come here and talk to you guys and things, and I don't do well on cameras, so I appreciate it, but thank you all very much. 2 videos right over there. Well, just let me say this in closing, and then I know you guys got some other things. Dave and I have been going since about 5 this morning, meeting with groups this size, dealing with the horrific violence in schools and trying to talk to the administrators to put them as much ease as we can. But, yes, our government is flat broke, but God isn't. So
We're not done yet. Our next speakers. Whoa! Our next speakers will be talking to us about the AZCDL, which stands for the Arizona Citizens Defense League. And they just need a few minutes, so we'll be done shortly. I walk. John Mitchell and John Clark. This is John Mitchell.
I'm so glad I'm so pleased rather to see such a large crowd. This is inspiring to me to see the attendance in a tea party to this level. And I know this is such a hot topic right now with all of what we've been seeing. Can I see a show of hands? How many of you are NRA members? Okay.
It's easier to ask who was it.
And the next question is, why is not everyone's hand up? Okay. How many of you here have heard of the Citizens Defense League? That's great. Okay. Those of you who haven't or are not members, I want to, it might be better if I just read a brief on what we do. And it's such a great segue as Sheriff Scott was ending his time with you in regards to how do we take action in matters like this? How do we educate our communities? It's very important that we, as it were, the gentleman out here said, stir the pot. All right? It's really important that in your sphere of influence that you take every opportunity you can to try to speak to the issues, understand the issues first, and speak to them in an understandable way so that you can persuade those around you to see the importance of the Second Amendment. Because Scott said it right, without the Second Amendment, the rest of the amendments ultimately would fall. Okay? So, in regards to the Arizona Citizens Defense League, basically, what it's coming down to too is not only political action is so important, but legal action is. And there was a comment made in regard, we got too many lawyers. We got too many bad lawyers.
Yeah.
Okay? We got too many money-grubbing lawyers. The fact of the matter is we need to support the good lawyers.
Where's a good skin then when you need one?
Yeah. Okay, so basically, I don't know how many of you who don't belong to the AZCDL, we have flyers on the back table when you entered, and I'd love to have you take one and read this, and we do have applications here. We don't, because what it comes down to is legal action are the things that we need to be taking to further ensure our Second Amendment rights. But anyway, the Arizona Citizens Defense League is a nonprofit, all-volunteer, nonpartisan grassroots organization dedicated to the principles contained in Article 2, Section 2 of the Arizona Constitution that says, all political power in the people and the governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed and are established to protect and maintain individual rights. All right? That's the bedrock of the position of the AZCDL. Furthermore, we believe that the rights of self-defense and bearings are of all other rights. Our freedom of speech, our freedom of against unreasonable searches, self-incrimination, our right to bear arms, all of our fundamental rights only exist because we stand firmly resolved to preserve them. AZCDL exists to strengthen that resolve. All right? We need your support. It doesn't cost a lot to join and to become active. And on this flyer, there's a list of the accomplishments, by the way. One in particular that I'd like to make sure you understand is AZCDL was the organization through our legal team that was able to pass the castle doctrine. Are you aware of what that is? Okay, that means you have the right to defend your home without possibility of being sued. Okay? They were successful with that. And there's so many of them. I'm not going to take the time nor bore you with reading a bunch of narrative to you, but please take one and we'd love to have you join us. Okay? It's coming down to, you know, the unfortunate fact is it's coming down to the case where we're really going to have to take action, you know. And it's easy to sit back and think, well, Joe will take care of it, or Mary will take care of it. No. If we don't do it, who will? Right?
John,
So,
you mentioned the NRA. What about Gun Owners of America? That's another one.
that's another one. Yeah, I'm not trying to.
No, I mean, just to make sure that we join all of them.
Yeah, we should be supporting them all. That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
I get the notices from the NRA, but I was just kind of curious, what do they mean? Do they do a monthly meeting, monthly meeting or anything, or?
No. Usually my words, no meetings.
Okay. They don't.
The only way we'll contact you is by email, and that's only to get you behind some legislation action, which is either good or bad.
Yeah.
And we don't ask for money except once a year, your dues.
How much is that?
$30.
And by the way, we're going to have a booth. Are you all aware of there's going to be in Cottonwood, there's going to be a gun show this weekend?
Okay. What time does it start?
8 a.m.
And where?
Yeah, Cottonwood.
8.
There's a 9. 9
Well, I was kind of concerned. I was told, I worked at a school, and then next door, unfortunately, there's a gun.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry. Could you stand up? I don't think everyone can hear you.
There is a gun shop that's near where I work at the school, and I went in there to talk to the gentleman about purchasing, because I used to have a gun, and I was taught by a homicide officer, and then unfortunately, the gun was stolen, so I wanted to replace the gun. But they saying the laws now, we still are, they give your names and everything, right, to the administration. They are keeping better track. I mean, I'm kind of concerned about, I guess what I'm concerned about is because things have gone so far left that if you buy a gun from a shop, then you're going to be more targeted than if you buy one outside that. So I haven't decided which way.
Not that I'm aware of. The recording of the document that you have to sign when you purchase from a federal firearms licensed dealer is retained by, correct me if I'm wrong, John, it's retained by the dealer. And the BATF has the right to inspect, and they often do. They irregularly inspect their records, if I'm not mistaken. Sir?
When you purchase a weapon from a licensed dealer, they have to call Phoenix, and your records are all in Phoenix as well as with the local dealer. So the government in Phoenix has all of your records of every weapon you've ever purchased legally.
Legally. Yeah, from a FFL dealer. Anything else?
Like, yes, my concern was if you bought one through a dealer and then they say, hey, you have to turn in your arms, and you don't want to turn your arms in, but they know that you're registered.
Then it got stolen, and you don't turn it in.
Yeah, they got stolen.
It fell off the boat at Lake Powell. That's where all mine are. I think there'll be a whole lot of people.
I'll leave that for you to make a decision on what you're going to do. I do know, I don't know how many of you, since this issue has really become so prominent, and it's so obvious in the agenda that this current administration address the issue. There's a YouTube out. I think if you Google in or get on YouTube and type in Australian, how does that go? There was an Australian gentleman that was a retired police officer in Australia, and I think he lived in Brisbane, as a matter of fact. He did about I think it was a 5 or 6 minute video, and on that video, it was kind of a tongue in cheek. He talked about all that went and all that was involved relative to they're in the process of confiscation in that whole country now. just as they did in England. And it started with registration, wholesale registration. All right? Well, he said at the end of his video, and I wish I should have been thinking a little better, but in any event, I had such a crazy day today, kind of like Scott. I was clear down at Clifton and had to race up here to get back up here on time. But, he ended his video, I think all those weapons went. Do you think that we turned them all in and he kind of winked? Yeah? They weren't. Okay?
You'll also note that their crime rate has gone up dramatically.
Exactly. Good point. Yeah, dramatically.
John?
And now, even in England, which was ahead of Australia, by the way, in the confiscation that they've done, but England now is in the process of banning baseball bats. That's the truth. There's no protection by it. That's how crazy it's going.
Send me that video. I'll see if I can get Brad, our super tech, to get it up on the Sedona Tea Party website.
I'll find it.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, I don't want to hold you and continue to bring questions. So we've got plenty of trifold folders in the back, and we'd love to have you join us, please.
All of you for coming tonight. Our next programs, I've heard a few people mention, Agenda 21. We will be focusing on different aspects and more what we can do. There are ways that you can opt out of the smart meters that they put on your house, that they are going to start doing this year. And there are other ways to approach our city council and convince them that the Sedona, how many of you have seen the Sedona 2020 vision plan? They would be.
How many know what Agenda 21 is? How many of you have heard about it? Go Google it and educate yourself.
And there are handouts over there about Agenda 21, trifold handouts over on the side table. But one of the things in the Sedona plan is there will be 3 entrances to the city where you have to leave your non-electric car. No. Only electric cars will be allowed in Sedona. You can either take their electric shuttle vans around, or you can ride your bicycle, or maybe an electric golf cart. Yes, sir.
Highway 89A is a public highway. They can't ban me from driving down a public
Well, that was the comment when we asked someone, said, a friend of mine said, isn't this going to be expensive? You've got to take over 89A from the state. And the comment was, money, don't worry about the money. You gotta get on that one, yes.
I've also seen Behind a Green Mask, which everyone should see. Yes. But if the city government takes money, tens of millions, from the government to impose this new smart meter issue, they will not listen to the citizens, and even an opt-out program ends up being dumped, and they put them on the houses anyway. So you've got to find out to make sure that city government is not taking funds from the government to push this agenda forward.
Yes. Dan McElroy from the City Council is going to come.
Here's the latest.
You're in front of the speaker.
The Arizona Corporation Commission has jurisdiction over the smart meter issue. They haven't yet decided about the provision. The council has not made any decision at all, awaiting the Corporation Commission decision. We would like to have the opt-out provision, either individually or for the whole city. But until the Corporation Commission tells us what they're going to do, we're just waiting. And if we do have a hearing, it'll be off-site. The city won't conduct it. It'll bring in APS, bring in the detractors, and let the public talk about it.
You don't want it.
We don't want it.
Well, I don't want it either.
Are there any?
Well, I think if you're with it being the responsibility of the commission in the most recent election, I think we can have confidence that they're going to come up with an opt-out program. Right. There are 5 new members on the committee.
you. And John wanted me to let everyone know, or remind those of you who already know, that on the 16th down at the state capitol, there will be a Second Amendment rally. I'm not sure what time it starts. 12 noon, high noon, thank you. And I think there's another one on the 23rd, I'm not sure.
If you want to learn about smart meters, Naperville.
I've got that video.
Yeah, but what is it's Naperville SmartMeterAwareness.org. Naperville
SmartMeterAwareness.org.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
And Tom DeWeese on American Pop. There are so many of them. We'll have Brad post it. Give it to Brad. He'll post it. Brad's sitting right across. He'll post it on the website. He's writing it down. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I was wondering, since he's, that's nice that he's here because he can educate us on city council, but I would like to know, can they, I would like to know, the council themselves, do they have to disclose to us if they take any grants? Do we have a choice in the matter? Like say, yeah, we're gonna take the money. So then it gives you guys an option of what you guys are gonna do as a city council. Would you guys take grants even and not inform us of taking the grants and we're just doomed? Or are you gonna allow us the option to vote on that?
Well, as I mentioned, we're waiting for the Corporation Commission to hold hearings and decide what they want regarding opting out of smart meters. When the city learns of what the options are for us, then we'll have this public hearing inviting everyone to come. APS will come to sell it. The detractors will come and oppose it. We'll have it heard off-site. And then the council will have to decide what we're going to do. But personally, the minimum would be to opt out individually and maybe the whole city, but it's still unresolved.
You want the whole
city.
I'm only one of 7, remember. I'm not speaking for the whole council.
Dan.
When they say that you should opt out, what they're not telling you is that if you opt out, it will cost you $65 per month.
No.
20.
Okay, they've revised it.
Well, that's what he was gonna say.
I had a meter reader 2 days ago said if we opt out, we'll all be getting letters, he said anyways. They're gonna install smart meters in the Sedona area first of the next year. And if you opt out, it's gonna cost you $20 a month just to opt out to keep your old meter.
Does that make so much cost your meter?
We should be able to read it ourselves.
Can I just make one more thing? We have the community plan being in process now. You folks who live in Sedona will have a chance to vote on it next year, 2014. If you don't like something, I'm comfortable with the 3 checkpoints and getting out of your car, I will vote against it myself. But it's a community vote, not just council. So keep that in mind.
Well, could I ask one question? When we had a change in what was going to happen on 179, there were 3 plans that were presented, and you had a chance to vote on those 3 plans. If they weren't any good, you didn't have a chance to say no. I mean, if we have an opportunity to say, that's one thing to do it, but if they present 3 different plans and say, which one do you like, that won't be a good vote. All right.
We need to
Now
do
we
the
need
raffle.
to do the raffle drawing. How much money do we have?
I want to thank everybody. This has been a great night tonight. We raised over $145 or $145. Half of it goes to the Sedona Tea Party, and the other half goes to the winner. So we've got $73 actually for the winner, and I'm going to ask this young man here to draw out the number.
It's the last 3 numbers, but I'll read all of them. 2364, and then 538. 538.
Oh, there we go.
As I started to say, learn about Agenda 21. We will be talking about that for most of this year, seeing what we can do. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.